scratch the surface of accountability we're looking for in the corrupt backroom dealings regarding the Greenbelt that we know favored a select few wealthy developers with connections to the Conservative Party. His resignation is the bare minimum. And today, with news that this matter has now been referred to the RCMP for a possible investigation, Ontarians deserve answers and accountability. The Auditor General's damning report left no room for doubt that the Housing Minister's staff did not act independently. Les assertions de Ford et de M. Clark, notant que ce membre du personnel a agi individuellement et tout seul pour truquer notre système est peu plausible. Mr. Ford and Mr. Clark's assertions that this single staff member acted alone to rig the system is completely and utterly implausible. There's just no way. I talk to my chief of staff as much as I talk to my kids and my partner these days. Do they really want us to believe the housing minister and the premier knew nothing? We are not fools. The people of this province are not fools, and we will not let this government take us for a ride. We want more. Doug Ford needs to demand the immediate resignation of his minister. The rot starts at the top, and Doug Ford needs to stop hiding. Nous continuons aujourd'hui notre demande à ce gouvernement conservateur pour rappeler le commencement de la législature immédiatement afin de présenter des résolutions pour rétablir notre ceinture de verdure, afin de protéger notre ceinture de verdure, notre terre écologique et agriculturelle magnifique pour le peuple de cette province. Today, we continue to demand that the Conservative government recall the legislature immediately so that we can table legislation to restore the Greenbelt, to protect the Greenbelt, this agricultural and ecological gem for the people of this province. L'OPP a fait la bonne décision de transmettre cette affaire à la GRC. Nous avons besoin de la transparence. Et pour ceux qui sont responsables de cette affaire, à faire face aux conséquences s'ils ont enfreint la loi. The OPP have made the right decision here, if they consider there to be a conflict of interest, to refer this matter to the RCMP. We need accountability for the people responsible for this, and if the law was broken, there should be consequences. Countless reports have shown there's more than enough here to warrant an investigation. And while the authorities do their job, I'm going to do mine as the leader of the official opposition in Ontario to hold this government to account. Because Ontarians deserve a government that acts responsibly and with transparency and integrity. This is the bare minimum of what it means to be a government. And I'm happy to take your questions.
Why do you think the Premier hasn't asked for Clark to resign yet?
Well, I can't speak for the Premier here, but I can say, as I've said, that the rot starts at the top, that Minister Clark needs to step down, that the government needs to recall the legislature and reverse its decision to rip out the Greenbelt, and those lands that it gifted to developers. And if the minister, I mean, we've tried calling on the minister to resign. The fact that he doesn't is concerning. I can't think of a time when it was more deserving that the minister stepped down. What we saw in the Auditor General's report was a breach of trust unlike anything we have seen, really, here in the province of Ontario. So I think it's deeply concerning that he hasn't taken that step himself, and it's on the Premier now to demand his resignation.
Do you have a sense of what this resignation would mean for an Integrity Commissioner investigation?
I mean, that's a very good question. But as long as he's an MPP, he'd still be answerable to the Integrity Commissioner. Oh, you do mean the chief of staff? Oh, I mean, look, I don't think that impacts it at all, and I think that and let's not forget that the integrity commissioner is also responsible for looking at, the role and ensuring that past employees and staff, political staff, have to meet certain requirements as well.
More about what you think it means that the OPP took the step to refer it to the RCMP, about whether they, felt that there was some fire behind the smoke.
Well, I mean, I think that, I again, to me, if they consider there to be some sort of a conflict here, that they should not be the ones to be taking on this investigation, I think they did the right thing. I won't question that at this moment. I just want to make sure that the right people are investigating or deciding whether to investigate, and that is the RCMP clearly in this situation. And so I'm glad they passed the matter along. And they'd have to answer your questions about why they consider there to be a conflict.
Marit, you had said that there is more than enough here to warrant an investigation. So the NDP believes that something criminal took place here.
I think if you look at what took place, I mean, I've not hesitated to call this corruption or collusion even. I think that there were clearly people who benefited and actually influenced government decisions, literally wrote the plans from what we can gather from the Auditor General's report, provided those in a brown envelope to a political staffer at a dinner. Who knows what other ears they were whispering in. USB keys were shared, right? So it's very clear that there was collusion here, and that influenced government policy making that will benefit these developers to the tune of $8.3 billion at least. So I'm glad the RCMP are looking into it. I would hope that there's an investigation if there's a need to have one. I certainly think that what we're seeing here, and what I'm hearing from people across this province, is they knew something smelled bad about this deal from the beginning. Ontarians knew that. We all knew that. Ontarians knew that. The Auditor General's report clearly shows that. And people across this province are saying to me that they are concerned about the integrity of this government. So, I would ask the Premier to, make sure that he and all his staff and all his ministers are complying. I've asked, as you know, the Information and Privacy Commissioner, the Secretary of Cabinet as well, to basically, nail down those servers, right? We, the people of this province, need to know that that no more emails are going to be deleted, right? That any communication that happened around these deals, whether it was on a private phone of the Premier's or some other staff person's or private email or government devices and email, that those are made available and accessible and provided not just to the RCMP and every other body now that is investigated, including the Integrity Commissioner, but to the public, to journalists, so that we can get back some of that transparency and accountability.
Right now, if the government were to tomorrow announce that they're going to reverse the decision and put the 7,400 acres of land back in, would that be satisfactory for you?
Oh, no, I think that obviously for us, and I think for Ontarians, this is the number one thing that has to happen. We need to put that land back where it belongs, where it can be protected. But there's no question that these questions will continue to be asked by Ontarians, right? That's not going to end the story, nor should it, because this unfortunately goes deeper, I think, right? It reflects on other decisions that the government may be making right now. I know people are asking, what does this mean for deals like they're making with Therma on the sale of, or the, 95-year lease, is it, of the Ontario Place lands? I think this casts a pall over any decision this government is making right now. And we have a government that's very keen on privatizing our healthcare system. A lot of companies are going to benefit from that. Does the government have connections to all of those folks too? But look, at this moment, my real focus right now is we need to recall the legislature so that we can actually introduce legislation to roll that back, but also give the people of this province a chance to hear from their government. And the Premier needs to come out of hiding.
Do you have a sense of what it could be that the OPP would consider a conflict?
I think if you look at what came up in the Auditor General's report, you have a government that showed complete disregard for public interest and was being fed information and plans and actually changing policy and making decisions that would benefit a very few people at the expense of Ontarians. Once you start talking about sharing USB keys and documents and changing laws to benefit a couple of people who are connected to your government, that is something that deserves certainly investigation. But if there were laws that were broken, there need to be consequences. And I think we do need to let the authorities do their job. We're going to keep doing ours and use every tool that we have to hold the government to account.
So we have one caller on the line.
Sorry, there was a follow-up question there. Just one second. It's okay.
It is still, though, quite unusual for a police force to say that they feel they have a conflict of interest.
Absolutely. I mean, Ontarians have a right, honestly, to believe that their government doesn't need to be investigated by the RCMP. But here we are. We have a government that is being potentially investigated by the RCMP. We have ongoing investigations by the Integrity Commissioner. And I think for Ontarians, it's pretty clear why. A few people benefited. And as you know, we also have asked the Integrity Commissioner to look into those relationships between these developers and the Premier and their attendance at some family functions. This is a complete and utter disregard for accountability, for ethics and integrity. And, I spoke this week to municipal officials from leaders from across this province, and I said to them, we all swear an oath of integrity, and we serve the people of this province. We're supposed to, as elected officials, be held to a higher account. I mean, frankly, and this government clearly has not been acting in the best interests of the people of this province, has not been acting with integrity, refuses to bring about any kind of transparency, and a Premier who refuses to take real responsibility. It's very unfortunate. It's very disappointing. And it doesn't need to be like this. And that's the other thing is, every time this kind of thing happens with a government, and this is certainly one of the worst breaches of trust that I think we've seen in this province's history. But every time something like this happens, it means that Ontarians lose their trust in the role of government. And that's bad. That's bad for democracy. So I'm really concerned about it. I think there was somebody on the line.
Yeah, we'll go to the phone.
On the teleconference, please press star 1. And your next question will be from Alan Hale at Queen's Park today.
Hi, Alan.
Hi there. I was just wondering what you made of Mr. Amato's justification for resigning. He blames misleading statements, misleading public statements about him that have unfairly depicted him and his role regarding the Greenbelt, and that he is confident that he has acted appropriately and that a fair and complete investigation would reach the same conclusion. What do you make of that?
I would just say that it's completely unbelievable that the minister's chief of staff acted independently on such a massive issue, right? And I think the Auditor General's report is pretty clear about that. And it sort of insults the intelligence of Ontarians to think that the Premier and his minister knew nothing at all. So I would say that if Mr. Amato is saying that he may be is being unfairly bearing the brunt of this, he may be right. It certainly, as I've said, I think he should take responsibility. As I've said before, he should have been let go right away. But the rot starts at the top. The Premier needs to be held accountable. The legislature needs to be recalled so that we can get answers and so that we can reverse this terrible decision to pave over the Greenbelt.
Do you think that his resignation and the revelation that this has been kicked over to the RCMP is a coincidence or not?
I mean, I couldn't possibly speculate. I don't know. I do know that we haven't heard from the Premier, and I would like to hear from the Premier. I would like him to come out of hiding and address what's taking place here. I want him to assure Ontarians, first of all, that the legislature is going to be recalled so that we can get some answers to these questions, and so that we can shine a light on the decisions that he and his government made, and get to the bottom of who's responsible, so we can reverse the Greenbelt decision, and so that he can face the people of Ontario. It's time, and it's time to stop with the excuses and the attempts to distract and actually be accountable to the people. Great. Okay. Thank you very much.